Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to start you off somewhere a little different. I know yesterday I was pretty excited just to witness the eclipse a couple of days ago and kind of just marvel at what you could get out of just a small amount of the sun. But what I guess I should be more impressed with is a small amount of water and what happens to it when it freezes. So apparently, even though I disconnected my hose last fall, I had some water left over in the pipe that runs out to the outside spigot, and just that little bit of water freezing did this. Now, thankfully, I caught it early, so I don't need to hire anybody to clean up my basement, but just want to show you about the power here of expanding water. Okay, from there, let's talk about some of the big picture things we've been discussing. The newest European model data is shown here. This is a precipitation anomaly figure. Now we know what we're watching. We have this deep low that's already produced 3 days of severe weather across the south, and I'm including today, which is going to be a really rough go of it in this area. This low is going to continue to move up tomorrow through the Ohio Valley and eventually into parts of the Northeast and the Canadian Maritimes, producing a lot of very wet weather and some more severe weather in a couple of different places tomorrow. I'll show you that. A couple of things we've been monitoring. The back side of this, as the warmth is coming in, are we going to be seeing some more open planting windows? And we want to know where that low that this weekend sneaking down this side of California as it makes the turn and comes out early next week into the northern plains, where does it deliver its precipitation? Now, I know you may look at this and it looks completely dry, but it's not. There will likely be a system early next week that delivers some chances of precipitation in here, including the risk of strong to severe storms, I think on Monday. We'll talk more about that in a second. But one of the bigger shifts has been this area here away from snow and away from wetter weather. We can now see that it's now forecast drier. On Monday, this was all kind of filled in with a much slower moving low. Now that low, when it gets here, will become part of a deeper upper level system that's likely going to move over the Great Lakes around the 19th, 20th, 21st, and that's the one where I'm concerned about the risk of a late frost here after all the warmth we're getting into. So that is just a very quick rundown. If you have any more time, that's good. Just watch that part and you know the near-term things I'm thinking about. But I want to show you who's joined the party here. You remember I said the ensembles were not picking up on this event that the artificial intelligence forecasting system had been picking up on. So here we are on the 20th at 12Z, 20th of April. And whereas the last few days, this low had not been resolved by the ensembles, here it is in the GFS ensemble this morning. I'm going to flip you over to the European ensemble. Let's go back so I can get the 0Z run. Take you out there, ready? And there it is. So it's here as well. And of course, that is also being mimicked quite well in the European artificial intelligence forecasting system. So remember, this is the test we were kind of putting the models up against, especially the artificial intelligence system, which had been predicting this larger ridge to the west, more amplified flow across the country, meaning more north-south meridional flow, and the lingering impact of this low that was going to sit and spin in this area and where it could drop, freezing temperatures. And so we will come back to that again. But just to take note, you see the blue line in here? We talked about this a few weeks ago. That's that 540 line. Now remember, it's not a hard and fast rule. It's an approximation. So this is where we're going to be thinking about the potential for getting a temperature down there close to the 32 degree mark. So that's kind of the bigger story over the next few weeks. We'll walk through the details in a few moments. At the end, I'm going to have a quick discussion about why I've not been focusing so much on the sub-seasonal forecast these last few days. I'm going to just get into, I think there's some issues with predictability right now, and we'll finish up with a quick global look here. So here we go. This is the next 10 days, though, and this is why I'm concerned about that system out there around the 20th, 21st, because most of the next 10 days, we have very, very mild conditions overall in this area. Now, there are cold fronts coming through. We'll take a look at those in a few moments, but overall very mild weather in this area. So that's the spot that I'm concerned about getting the late hit of cool conditions. It'll just be in the morning, one shot of this, but we'll talk about where that frost risk could be. Okay, so satellite data yesterday was just fascinating to watch. Thank goodness that the eclipse was earlier in the week, because had it been yesterday, most of its track would have been covered with cloud. I mean, just take a look at that as the sun was setting last night. Some extremely deep convection over parts of the south, and this is where we had several severe storms, and I will always zoom in and have a look at those because I remember a time, it wasn't too long ago, that we didn't have such high-resolution geostationary satellite data where you could just watch these storms boil in the afternoon and produce these huge shadows of their overshooting tops And every time we see those, we understand that it's likely that these are not just severe, but producing large hail as well. And of course, over the last 3 days, if we just kind of look down there, several hail streaks being picked up by the radar. So there's been quite a bit of damage throughout Texas. And these storms, as they're extending this morning into parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, where we're going to be watching for another day of a moderate risk of severe weather, this is going to be a pretty impactful event. Yesterday's storm reports, no tornadoes reported as of yet, but 128 reports in total. A lot of them from that cluster that was right down here in this part of south central Texas, producing some very, very large hail. Okay, total rainfall. This is a pretty impressive map. Just over the last 72 hours, we've already seen, and this is where those flood watches were issued yesterday, we've already seen some places getting better than 4 inches of rain. And as a result of that, it's extremely wet here, and we're just not even done with the precipitation coming through this area. You can also see when you look back where that upper level system was sitting and spinning, just going back over the last 3 days, back to the 7th, it's where it produced some storms lately. Okay, this morning on radar, this is just through probably about 7 o'clock this morning. I got a little bit of a later recording, had to rerun some stuff for you this morning. But we're watching here, the complex of storms rolling right along the Gulf Coast. And this larger system will be moving toward the Ohio Valley as we go forward. But these storms are quite powerful this morning. There's a tornado watch down here early this morning. In addition to that, they are really loud. A lot of lightning going through parts of eastern Texas into Louisiana, eventually to Mississippi. You can see here just the count of the cloud-to-ground lightning strikes early this morning. Flood watches are widespread from eastern Texas all the way over to the Florida Panhandle and parts of southwestern Georgia. And this is going to be, like I said, just an extremely wet event on its just open access to Gulf of Mexico moisture. But to the north, some stronger northerly winds are coming down here, northwesterly winds producing the high wind advisories that you see in this area. To take a look at those winds, just have a look here. This is the midday wind field today, and there's our low curling up, fed by this large high pressure system. See the moisture coming around? And right into this region, Louisiana, Mississippi, is where we're going to keep an eye out today. And the upper level setup with this is really just what we would call classic. What I mean by that is look at the turn in this shortwave. We have the downstream jet streak, which starts here. We have the subtropical jet to its south, and there is just going to be a tremendous amount of lift in the atmosphere right in this area because you're going to get the support from this jet streak here, so its divergence will be sitting somewhere in this vicinity. You'll have the divergence from this jet streak here sitting somewhere here, and then your trough axis, which is beginning to make this turn to become negatively tilted, is going to put its divergence in the same area. In other words, we've completely taken the lid off the atmosphere in order to just get deep low pressure forming in this area. And that's what we're going to be watching today and the resulting severe weather because of it. So the Storm Prediction Center this morning has issued a pretty broad area from Louisiana into Mississippi and Alabama, where they've kind of extended their moderate risk, and it's a multi-factor risk, right? So we have the hail risk, which we've seen for the past 3 days. We've also got the risk of straight line wind damage, and also the risk of isolated rotating storms producing tornadoes. Tomorrow, as the system rolls into the Ohio Valley, broad area from Kentucky into Pennsylvania, and everywhere in between, it's got the risk of severe storms. And you can see down here in Georgia, parts of South Carolina and Florida, we'll be keeping an eye out on this one as well. So let's go and have a look at it in the high-res models. Let's start off with the NAM. As we play this forward, I do want to point out one interesting thing about the NAM, because by this evening, look, you can already see where the model's trying to toss in those isolated storms, but on the back side, you'll watch this. Pretty large push here. We're thinking that there might be a squall line that follows this in the overnight hours. Well, that low continues to spin. I had thought we'd get more rain farther to the north in Arkansas and into the Boot Heel of Missouri, but the model's kind of trended a bit farther to the east with this. And the NAM puts a pretty sharp cutoff right here on the heavy precipitation. Just take note of that because some of the other forecast models don't. They've got more rain getting back farther into Illinois, Missouri, even Iowa, and parts of Wisconsin. So this will be where we get by tomorrow morning on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. And then as we watch the storms clear the southeast, the low starts to roll through parts of the Ohio Valley, and you can see right in through here where it's trying to kick off those severe storms tomorrow afternoon and evening. So keep an eye out right along that boundary late tomorrow afternoon and evening. This system pulls to the north pretty quickly, which means there will be windy conditions and some cooler air that comes in behind this. but it's not a massive blast of cold air because the system's lifting to the north and not digging to the south at this particular point. Now, as we get out to Friday into Saturday, you can start to see the next system we're going to be watching. It's here. It's off the California and Oregon coast. That's the one that slides south and eventually makes its way into the northern plains. And we'll take a look at that one more closely in a second. It is neat to see that on the back side of this, we could have a little low. This would be Friday midday that curls up. So the broader trough is here. There's a little shorty that sneaks around the backside, maybe coming through Ohio, right up against the Appalachian Mountains here. We'll probably be able to see it a little bit better if we go to the the upper level heights. So I'm going to show you the artificial intelligence forecasting system. This is the little wave on the backside. There's the deep one to the south that's producing the severe weather today, tomorrow here. And then look, there it is. So watch this little guy right here. Kind of fascinating. Just comes right around. There it is, going over Iowa. And it sneaks around the bottom, just slides right in through there. That's kind of a little kicker wave on the backside of this. So as that low kind of slides its way through New England and the Canadian Maritimes, by Saturday night, we're watching this next one rolling along the coast of California. We'll watch it more closely in a few minutes when we look at the GFS versus the European. That low over the weekend into early Monday goes over 4 corner states. It's cut off from the flow. See this? But watch the linking it's going to have with this broader trough feature in Western Canada getting up into the Arctic. So this is the 16th into the 17th. Now, what I'm concerned about is as that low comes through, there'll be a severe weather threat on Monday night here. And then as it rolls into the eastern Great Lakes, what is important is what's going on behind it. So there's the 17th, 18th, 19th. See this deeper low that forms? That's actually linked up with some Arctic air. So whereas the west goes back over very, very warm, and they need the heat in a big way across the west, this low curls up, stacks up, and sits there. And that's the one I'm worried about. And I'm showing you the artificial intelligence because it was the first system to kind of resolve with more clarity where that system was going to be. And that's out 10 days. Now, beyond this, that last bit of April, when we get past that, we open back up to some more warmth, I think, across a broad section of the U.S., and we seem to lose these deep bowling ball type troughs that just linger in places, which possibly means that once we get past this 20th, 21st, 22nd event and it rolls out, warmth is going to show up. Possibly the pattern slows down a little bit. Planting windows become wide open. We get just a chance to, we get a chance to have a little breather going into the end of April and some planting windows. That's the big picture. Okay, so let's compare models here. This first one is the WPC. This is its forecast for the next 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. Now, notice how much farther to the west the rain is here. And then take a look at how wet it's got this region in through there. I'm telling you this because the WPC forecast is an entirely different forecasting system, of course, than the artificial intelligence. This is its 7-day forecast on total accumulated precip. All right. So a lot of different, look at this, a lot of differences. I know they're different projections. I'm getting everything standardized. I'm working on it every single day for us. But just some differences. Here is the European model solution. And I'm getting quite concerned that this area may have severe storms in it that are not being resolved by the European model, but also this is this area that we've been talking about being kind of avoided by this pattern. Here's the GFS. So can we do that again? WPC, artificial intelligence, European operational run, and the GFS 7-day. What we need to do is look at what that's going to do stacked up against what we've had for the last at least 30 days. Because, and it's not just 30 days, but this area has been dry, and we're now seeing it getting missed again. And that's an area that we got to get some slow-moving lows that go right here, like the one we just had, right? It's what brought the rain to fill in this part of this hole. By the way, this has always got a 1-day lag on it, so this is through yesterday at 7 a.m. So it's not including all the rain we had in this area last night. But we need to get slow-moving lows to sit through parts of Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma to fill this all in. So that's an area of concern. All right, soil moisture-wise, I'm going to only take you down 16 inches today because I want to just look at who's recovered the top few inches here of soil moisture and who's not. So just have a quick look. Improvement will be happening here. But this whole area, parts of the western Cornbelt into the southern plains, missing. I think we'll see improvement in southern Michigan as well. Okay. Snow. Just want to point out that with that next system, the one that's sneaking through California this weekend, moves into the northern plains early next week. That's a big and windy system there. We've now moved the snow risk even farther and farther to the north in the models. Remember earlier this week we had the snow coming all the way down here to Montana and the Dakotas? Well, we've just been watching the trend of it, and it keeps moving farther into parts of the eastern Canadian prairie here. So let's finally get to the model comparison. And GFS left, European right. So we've seen the high-res NAM give us a pretty good idea on where this system's going to go, but I want you to note something. Notice how much farther to the west the heavier rain is in the European on the right and the GFS on the left. Take note of the stronger winds that are on the backside of this as well. That's some pretty tightly spaced isobars here from Wednesday night through the day on Thursday. That low curls up, very well predicted by both models, going over the eastern Great Lakes. This would be Friday morning, Friday midday, Friday evening. Watch for some snow in that part of Ontario that you see colored blue there, and that low gets out. Now our attention goes back to California. This is midday Saturday, possibly some snow in the Sierra Nevada. It's all going to depend on the proximity of that low to the coast. Notice the European is closer, GFS is farther out. So that low slides to the south, and then it gets over the Rocky Mountains, and we kind of lose it, you just don't see it very well resolved in the models. But then it pops out right here on Monday night. Now, a little bit different timing in the models. Here's that second wave. Remember I told you it's linked up to some Arctic air? The second wave coming out of Alberta into Saskatchewan. Broad area of lower pressure here. But I'm concerned about the overall wind field of this and the risk. Watch the cursor over here on the right. The risk of strong to severe storms in this area on Monday night, right in through here. As we play this forward, this is now getting into the overnight hours. This would be late Monday night into early Tuesday morning. The low curls up, and now it begins to link with the deeper low that is coming out of the Canadian prairie. Now take note of this. The difference in position between the European and the GFS. The GFS has left the low lingering farther to the west, and that's why it's still delivering a lot more rain here. Remember I showed you at the beginning that the European already pushed it east. This will be something important to watch in the northern plains because we have this other dry spot here that's in the southern Canadian prairie, parts of North Dakota, the Red River Valley, that area. So this is Tuesday. Let's get into later in the day and watch the low curl up. There it is. Very well resolved in both models. And we're going to see where this low ends up going. Could drop another front here. This would be the 18th. Bringing some storms through. See that? That's good agreement. I'm 204 hours out, and both the models are seeing something coming through here on Thursday. This would be Thursday the 18th. And then where does that low live? How deep does it get here, and how much cold air gets trapped inside of it? Okay, just to let you know, this is what the Storm Prediction Center's got on Monday. Remember, that's the day we're worried about the severe weather in this area. They've already issued, this would be a day, what day is this? This would be day 6 in the forecast. Keep an eye out on that. 6 days out, they're already identifying this region. I also want to point out that they are still looking at the risk from the 17th and 18th on the backside of that low for snow here. So even though the models aren't resolving it, they're keeping an eye out on it, and I think it is important to recognize their forecast in this particular instance. But in terms of the probability of snow, it might be more in the mountains with the better chances up in the Canadian prairie. This is the chance of the next 10 days of getting an inch of snow out of, 3 inches of snow out of this. I want to remind everybody on the windy side of this, you can clearly see that that system has the potential of producing very, very strong winds once again in the northern plains. A lot of temperature contrast in this one. But to quickly come back to this, I'd like to take you over to the precipitation probability. We'll probably flip over to the new model run. Nope, yeah, let's just go back and have a look at it. Well, that was a very Midwestern thing to say, wasn't it? Nope, yeah, okay. So this is the 10-day outlook for the probability of an inch from today's 0Z European model. There's the chance of 2 inches, and there's the chance of 4. So this is actually including all of the systems we just discussed. All right, the drier side of this, there's that region getting very concerned about. And that's not to take away from any other region, but it's just the spot that we're keeping a close eye on here in the plains. Also because The European and the National Multi-Model Ensemble want drought to begin here and move east with time. So we talked about that on Monday. All right, from there, let's talk about week 2. I think the CPC, when they update their map this morning, will come much more in alignment with both the 0Z European and the 0Z GFS, which look very similar, don't they? Just kind of zooming in here on the European week 2 forecast. This is kind of the tail end of that event that's happening around the 17th and 18th. I think, like I said, we open up after that, West Coast, East Coast, with much fewer systems to finish off the month of April. At least that's the thinking I've got today. On the temperature side of it, this is what the problem is going to be with this forecast of some colder air returning. Very mild moving forward. Everywhere in gray is where I have a frost risk over the next 7 days, but I'm talking about the mild air that's coming into this region. We're expecting the accumulation of GDDs. This is the corn calculation. I mean, you get south of about 40 degrees north right here. We're looking at 80 to 120 GDDs right here in this area, and then much more farther to the south. That's how warm things are going to be. So taking a look at these daily temperatures, here's today. We know there's this shot of colder air coming in behind this on Thursday, but then that's gone because by Friday that moves right here over this part of like the Appalachian Mountains, moves into northeast, and then we're already back up in the 80s by Saturday. Cooler in California, that's when that low is sitting right here, cooling things off, bringing in rain and cloud cover. Sunday, Monday, this is the area that's going to open up for the severe weather risk. So you can see the temperature is certainly agreeing. But we're looking at, 70s and 80s in the Cornbelt. That's going to be, it's going to feel like a green light to get things going. This is Tuesday, though, the 16th, when that low is beginning to trek its way up here toward parts of, Ontario. So most of the day 5 through 10 has that mild air in place, but you're now seeing the reflection of that next low linking up with this Arctic air here, and that's where I'm concerned it's going to deliver it right into this area because the day 10 through 15 continues to trend kind of away from the mild conditions. We now see some cooler weather showing up here. It's also being echoed in the day 10, 5 through 10 European forecast, and take a look. Now what surprises me is where they've got the cooler anomalies, because it makes more sense to me to see this anchored in this area, maybe not getting down into Texas. And remember, to be a few degrees cooler than normal in Texas this time of year, it's not overly alarming, but to be 3 or 4 degrees cooler than normal in the Great Lakes, we're still at our frost points, right? This is typical last frost time of year. So we'll just watch that carefully. Just want to show you the newest artificial intelligence forecasting system out there for those early morning time periods. In fact, let me add one to that, 45. There you go. That's the 7 a.m. temperatures on the 21st, Sunday. So you can kind of see where I've got that frost risk. I put a contour line on it so it's easier to see. And then as we go from there to the 22nd, so again, we're putting this model to the test with this system, and we'll just see how well it does. Okay, beyond that, what about the longer range? From April 21, which is kind of the end of that cold shot, and beyond, the long-range models are not picking up on any significant temperature deviations. But you're looking at precip. Drier west, possibly very stormy throughout the plains. We would desperately need this in this area. Wet across the south and up the east. Now, this area could see more open planting windows, and the model's been consistent with showing that. But I would just make the case to tell you that I think, late April through May, even though the pattern might calm down a bit, I have a feeling we're going to see quite a bit of storm complexes rolling through. It's that time of year. That's an easy forecast to make in late April through early May. So let's just keep an eye out on this as seeing some open planting windows in this area, but do expect things to close up when we do get these little troughs that sneak through, delivering some severe weather. And the reason why I say that is the atmosphere hasn't shut that down yet, right? I mean, we've already looked at these multi-day events. Let's just keep an eye out on it. Predictability right now is tough, though, and the reason for that is because we're getting a pretty fast transition in a few things across the Pacific Ocean. Mainly, those things are tied to trade wind behavior. Can you already see the cool water showing up here? Over the last 7 days, this is how much the water temperatures have begun to cool off right along the equator. So this is where we're beginning to have our discussion about the ocean temperatures finally reflecting what the trade winds have been doing for about a month, which they're no longer, slowed down. They're now blowing faster out of the east, which is their typical direction, and that's allowing for better upwelling. And that coupling between the atmosphere and ocean is really revealing that El Nino's done. They're done with it. I don't care that the ocean temperatures look like this. That's not. Remember, the ocean temperatures reflect what the atmosphere is up to. Sea surface temperatures do. Now, there are deep ocean currents that also interact. I'm not talking about those sea surface temperatures. But I want to make note that this is an area we're watching, right? And overall from the last week, slightly cooler, but I can't make a story out of that just yet. Just want to be clear. We need to watch that area very carefully. And if you need to know why, what was it, last Friday? Go back to last Friday and watch that video, and you'll see why we're talking about this. All right, beyond that, why is subseasonal predictability hard right now? I'm not getting a good signal out of the MJO. It's collapsed back into null space. There are some signals that it may spend the next, 15 days closer to Africa. And if it does that, we have to look and see how the global patterns respond. And I can't tell you that it makes a whole lot of sense in late April, early May to use the MJO as the only thing. So I want you to know that's why I'm not so focused right now on the longer range and just trying to keep an eye on these near-term threats. So my last two maps are going to give you a global perspective on precip and temperatures. And I know a lot of you probably went straight to South America, where we're getting some very heavy rains on our safrinha crop. Also decent rains into Paraguay, Uruguay, Argentina, much above average in this area. A little dry in Western Europe. We have stormy conditions throughout much of Europe, getting over toward Black Sea region. Very wet right here in the desert. This is going to cause some major flooding. Notice also, too, that China is not having a dry spring either. So that's just a quick look at a few different areas across the planet. On temperatures, this is what the next 7 days looks like. Very mild, still across most of Europe, and especially getting this part of Western Russia toward the Black Sea region. Mild across parts of China as well. So early spring, certainly in this region. But where the heavy rains are expected right here, cooler than average conditions are also in the forecast. So I just want to give you that quick international perspective as we wrap this one up. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll pick up again tomorrow. Thanks.